This is a public service announcement. The following presentation contains controversial information and ideas that could change the way you view the world. What you see and hear may soon compel you to take action. Viewer discretion is advised. The year was 1776, and the famous document you see pictured here, which was signed by a small group of 56 courageous souls you see in this image here, forever changed the course of human history. And yet, the corruption and government control these men gave their lives to avoid has once again reared its ugly head today. Only this time, it is more than your life and livelihood that is at risk. Planet Earth and our global ecosystem hangs in the balance as well. Now, what you may not realize is that several of these men made their living as farmers. They grew the towering plant you see photographed here. Back then, this plant was used for everything from clothing to rope to paper, medicines, and food. And back then, it played a vital role in the life of the community. For centuries, many relied on this plant for both their health and their income. Thomas Jefferson, one of America's founding fathers, wrote that this plant is of first necessity to the wealth and protection of the country. And George Washington simply said this about the plant: sow it everywhere. How is it then that up until now, powerful forces have been able to take this plant from you and block you from enjoying its remarkable health and prosperity benefits? When you realize right now that today, this remarkable plant holds the key to your future and to the future of our planet, well, how can you not feel outraged by what has been done? You will hear more about this in just a moment, so be sure and watch this short presentation to the end. And there's more, because the story surrounding this plant would have the founding fathers turning over in their graves, and it must be told. So pay close attention to find out. A word of caution up front. There is a good chance you will feel angry as you watch and listen to what follows. You may think that you have heard it all or seen it all, and then you discover the truth, and you want to take action. Realize it is perfectly normal to feel angry and upset about having been lied to and deceived, and you probably will want to take action. That is to be expected. Simply know that you are not to blame. What has happened to this plant is practically criminal. It is an outrage that your life and the lives of all humans have suffered. The good news, all this is about to change thanks to what you will soon discover. One more thing. If you are the type of person who doesn't care about what's happening to the planet, and if you don't really care much about the legacy you want to leave your children, your grandchildren, and future generations, then you should leave this page right now. And if by chance you are happy with your life just the way it is, if making more of a difference in your family, your community, and in the world is not on your list of priorities, well, that's probably not the kind of person you are. However, if it is, then you will be wasting your time if you stick around. Realize now that this presentation is for you if you see yourself among the thousands and millions who recognize that our planet is at a crossroads, and you want to be part of a movement destined to change history once again, just like those bold individuals did when they signed that declaration. Little could anyone imagine back then what would happen nearly 2 centuries later in 1937, when the plant some call the Genesis plant, more commonly known as hemp, would be demonized like no other plant in history, to satisfy corporate greed and political interests and the desire for profit at any cost. So what exactly took place on August 2nd, 1937? What events led up to that day of infamy? And just as important, what does this mean for you here in the 21st century? We'll get to that last question in the next video. Right now, realize that hemp has been cultivated in America since the first settlers arrived in the 1600s. By 1810, hemp was America's third largest agriculture commodity, and as recent as a century ago, hemp played a vital role in the U.S. economy. That is, until a vicious propaganda campaign was launched in the 1930s by newspaper tycoon William Randolph Hearst. You see, Hearst didn't just own 22 daily newspapers and 15 weekly papers from coast to coast. He owned the lands that grew the trees which fed his paper mills. His entire empire was threatened by hemp. And so it began. A sinister plot was seemingly hatched, to slander, denounce, and literally crucify hemp by associating it with the term used in Mexico for the plant marijuana. Hearst published made-up horror stories about marijuana for years, calling it an evil weed. Propaganda films like Reefer Madness and Assassin of Youth were produced. It was all part of what looked like a cunning scheme designed to preserve the profits of corporations that poison the planet, that destroy the forests and soils, and that today puts our global ecosystem at risk of collapse. Hearst and his corporate cronies appeared to have one goal in mind: to gain enough public support so that laws could be passed banning both hemp and marijuana. And unfortunately, it worked. The American people were soon brainwashed to think and believe that hemp is the same as marijuana, and yet nothing is further from the truth. Consider the following statement issued in a recent Congressional Research Service report. Although marijuana is also a variety of cannabis, it is genetically distinct from industrial hemp and is further distinguished by its use and chemical makeup. Simply speaking, hemp contains 0.3% or less of the psychoactive ingredient THC, compared to a range of 5 to 25% found in medical marijuana. In other words, you'd have to smoke a hemp joint the size of a telephone pole to get high. Even then, you would probably end up with just a headache and a sore throat. Keep this in mind as you continue watching, because the timber and paper industries were not the only industries threatened by hemp. And when you see how all the dots are connected, you feel even more angry. You probably will want to take action, which makes total sense inside and out. So have a look for yourself, listen to what follows, and draw your own conclusions. For in the late 1930s, new technologies had arrived, promising to make hemp a cheap and eco-friendly alternative to the toxic methods used to make paper and synthetic fibers. Hemp looked ready to become the go-to source for the manufacture of building materials, textiles, papers, and plastics. Over time, hemp could have wiped out the profits in the steel, alcohol, food, oil, and pharmaceutical industries as well. Imagine for a moment, what if hemp had replaced petroleum and become America's homegrown, non-polluting biofuel of choice? And what if hemp had prevented the unnecessary and senseless destruction of thousands of trees and forests, reducing the carbon footprint at the same time? And what if hemp could contribute to the health of millions of Americans naturally, without you resorting to harmful and potentially dangerous prescription drugs? Well, as you are about to find out, all this is possible today. And still, big oil, big pharma, and other corporate interests seem fiendish in their efforts to ban hemp in America, rather than embracing hemp as nature's gift to the world. Now, in addition to Hearst, other key players involved in the alliance to destroy hemp included Harry J. Anslinger, Andrew Mellon, and the DuPont Company. Both Hearst and DuPont in particular were at risk of significant financial loss because of hemp. And as you will see, the web of lies, corruption, and deceit grew tighter. Andrew Mellon, one of DuPont's primary investors, served as President Hoover's Secretary of the Treasury. Mellon appointed his future nephew-in-law, Harry J. Anslinger, to head the newly formed Federal Bureau of Narcotics. Coincidence or not, Anslinger would go down in history as the drug czar who led the government campaign to outlaw hemp. The cunning strategy was something you'd expect from a Madison Avenue ad agency. Confuse hemp with marijuana, and then brand marijuana as an evil weed. Spread lies and hysteria through the Hearst newspaper and publishing network. And give in to greedy corporations like DuPont wanting a world where hemp did not exist. And so, on August 2nd of 1937, the unthinkable happened. The Marijuana Tax Act was passed. The law imposed heavy taxes on hemp farmers. It made cultivation or any use of the hemp plant economically unfeasible. Hemp farming in America came to a grinding halt, and with it, the hope for a cleaner and better world. It was a dagger in the heart of an amazing plant, and a betrayal of you and the values you hold dear, of your family, your legacy, and generations to come. It was and is an American betrayal. And yet, while a dark chapter in America's history may have begun in 1937, today, right now, we are witnessing the end of an era that never should have been. For out of the ashes of the past arises a new world, where the ancient and modern Genesis plant plays a starring role, enriching the earth, restoring balance to the ecosystem, while blessing your life and the lives of those you care about the most. The fuse has been lit, igniting a movement and a mission. It is the beginning of an unprecedented opportunity to take back your health, your freedom, your planet. The place we all call home. So where do you go from here? Watch the next video now for a surprising twist to our story.